ever hear of the husband stitch, also known as the daddy stitch, the extra stitch, or medically speaking, surprise, you live in hell? Well, listen to this.
My doctor gave me a husband stitch without my consent. I'm currently recovering from surgery to fix what he did to me. I've talked to lawyers, I've talked to people, but I seriously nobody will take my case. So I figured I'd warn other mothers out there that this is still a thing and be aware of it when you're giving birth. If you don't know what a husband stitch is, it's when the doctor sews up your vagina tighter for the husband's pleasure. With my son, I gave birth to him last May. I worked so hard in preparation for his birth. I prepared my body, I did all the perinatal massages, all of it. And I barely tore. And the doctor, Dr. Wasserman in Sholo, Arizona, he said, "Congrats, you only need one stitch. You barely tore." I was so happy. Well, the next day he comes in and we're, in newborn bliss. We'd slept for 2 hours, all of that stuff. The doctor looks at me and says, "I gave you an extra stitch to make you more taut down there." And then he looks at my husband and smiles like, "You're welcome." And my husband and I are like, "You what?" We were seriously so stunned, and then he left. I felt like I was shocked. Like, he did what? He gave me an extra stitch? Anyways, time goes on, and that stitch, because it's not supposed to be there, it fell out. It gave me, it came undone, and it was giving me a lot of complications. I went back to Summit Hospital, and the nurse practitioner there just ripped it out. I was in so much pain. Anyways, time goes on, and it doesn't heal properly. It hurts down there. I'm in a lot of pain. I finally see my original OB, and we schedule surgery because there was a neuroma from where my body was rejecting the stitch because it's not supposed to be there. Anyways, I just got surgery yesterday. Hopefully I heal well from it. But I honestly think the worst thing is that I feel so violated. I just feel like, why would he do that without my consent? It is 2026.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Colleen, your friendly neighborhood abortion influencer. And don't feel too bad if you didn't already know about this. That's just called, hey boo, you live in the patriarchy. So note that I have not independently verified this young woman's account, but what she's talking about, oh, that is absolutely real. So let's get into it, shall we? So the so-called husband stitch is what women have described as an extra medically unnecessary stitch done after childbirth, usually when a doctor is repairing a tear or repairing an episiotomy, which is a surgical cut to the perineum during delivery. But here's the important part. Repair after birth is supposed to restore anatomy and function, not to give our partners a bonus feature like we're some kind of sex doll or turn postpartum care into a sexist joke.
I think that sounds like the most ridiculous thing ever, and I'm not into it.
Let's ground this in actual medicine. Childbirth often involves tearing. ACOG estimates over half of vaginal births involve some degree of perineal laceration or tearing. Clinical guidelines, including NHS perineal repair standards, are explicit. The goal is proper healing and normal function, and repair should not narrow the vagina or create long-term complications like painful sex. But to really understand how we got here, we have to talk about episiotomies a bit more. I know that's just what you wanted to do, but it's interesting because for decades, starting around 1920s, episiotomies were widely used in the US under the belief that a clean surgical cut would be easier to repair and would prevent worse tearing. By 1983, over 60% of women giving birth in the United States were getting episiotomy. But here's the part that should give pause. Doctors at the time literally believed that during repair, they could create a better perineum, meaning, they thought they could tighten things up. That mindset did not come from just anywhere. It's the same sexist logic sitting underneath the so-called husband stitch. But then the research caught up. Starting in the 1980s, high-quality studies began showing that routine episiotomies were actually causing more severe trauma, not less, along with long-term complications like painful sex. A 2005 JAMA review found no benefit to routine episiotomy, and a 2017 Cochrane review found no benefit for either the mother or the baby. So now medical guidance has shifted. Today, episiotomies are supposed to be used selectively, not routinely, and rates have dropped significantly. But, and this is important, That doesn't mean the culture changed overnight, because even now, research shows that whether a woman gets an episiotomy can still depend heavily on the provider, the hospital, even geographic location. In other words, your body can still come down to someone else's preference. Before you say, well, I'll only go to a female OBGYN. Listen, I get the impulse, totally get it. But just a warning, patriarchy doesn't clock out because the doctor is a woman. It's baked into the training, the culture, the hierarchy of medicine itself. And women can and do operate within that same system, with the same blind spots, the same pressures, and sometimes the same harmful practices. And I say this from experience. Story time! So when I was in my early 30s, I made the resolute decision to get a tubal ligation. I just never wanted children, and I wanted to be sure I never had to worry about that. So I went to my female OBGYN for a consultation about it, all doe-eyed and innocent and naive, thinking we'd have a serious adult conversation about it. Nope, she refused on the basis that I was too young, in my early 30s, and I might just change my mind. I'm willing to bet that almost everyone who's child-free by choice has heard that frustrating declaration before many times. Now, what you don't expect is to hear it from your female OBGYN. Yeah, I know, this is anecdotal, but I'm willing to bet at least $10 that my experience was not an anomaly. Okay, so let's get back to the husband stitch. So I'm tagged on the original video on Instagram of this woman's account. Horrific account, I should say. So I've been seeing the comments that are rolling in on it. Most people are horrified, never knowing this even existed. Fewer were women quietly acknowledging that they too received this procedure against their will and have suffered for it. And the harm here is not theoretical or some old wives' tale or an Alfred Hitchcock horror film. We have real evidence to back it up. A Brazilian reproductive health study documented clinicians openly referring to the
ponto do marido,
or the husband stitch in English, intended to make the vaginal opening tighter. The reported outcomes, well, the usual: vaginal and vulvar pain, scarring complications, and deformities requiring actual surgical correction. And then over in Cambodia, research found clinicians and patients discussing the idea of pretty genitals and a tight vagina with women themselves, citing fear of prolapse, most valid, and concern about their husband's sexual satisfaction. Low internalized misogyny. So why do so many Americans still not know this even exists? Well, for one, there are no large U.S. clinical studies like the ones in Brazil and Cambodia, specifically measuring the husband stitch. Major clinical guidelines instead talk about consent, proper repair, and avoiding harm, but they do not usually call out the husband stitch by name. It just gets buried under bad repair, miscommunication, one more, complications. So these women's stories have been treated like gossip instead of, evidence of a pattern. Then again, studying it directly would mean admitting that doctors are performing non-consensual, unethical modifications to patients' bodies. And, institutions aren't exactly eager to open that legal and liability door. But the behavior it describes does keep showing up in lawsuits and research on consent failures and childbirth. For example, a 2022 study on consent around episiotomy itself found that consent was often not fully informed or voluntary, and too often looked more like compliance than actual choice. And there it is. Because when medicine is still shaped by the patriarchy, women's pain gets minimized, women's bodies get managed for men, and everybody pretends not to notice unless there's a lawsuit, of course. Oh, and speaking of lawsuits, just in 2025 and 2026, multiple lawsuits were filed against a California OBGYN named Barry Brock, with patients alleging a range of abusive practices, including performing the so-called husband stitch. Now, these are just allegations at this point, so not proven findings yet, but they are detailed and they are consistent. And now they are part of the public record. But let's zoom out for just a moment, because this isn't just about one procedure, is it? This is about a pattern. When medicine is shaped by patriarchy, male comfort and pleasure is just quietly prioritized, even in feminine spaces as vulnerable as childbirth. As Stephanie Tillman, a certified nurse midwife at the University of Illinois, Chicago, told Healthline in an interview, the fact that there is even a practice called the husband stitch, is a perfect example of the intersection of the objectification of women's bodies and healthcare. Y'all, here's the part that should make your blood absolutely boil. Men will never have to worry about this. Not once, not ever. They will never be in a position where their genitals are altered for their partner's pleasure without their consent after a medical procedure. Because let's face it, if there were even a rumor of doctors making it a little girthier while getting their vasectomies, by the end of the week, we'd have emergency legislation, a Supreme Court case, 3 Fox News specials, and don't forget the red-faced Tucker Carlson endlessly screeching about the end of Western civilization. And yet, somehow, they are still in charge. From the delivery room to the pulpit to Capitol Hill, men who will never experience this particular experience are still deciding what happens to our bodies. And that is what needs to fucking change. If you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and please share it with someone who really needs to hear it. And I will see you next time for more stories they really hoped we'd never look into too closely. Okay, thanks. Bye.